Ukraine, April 26, 1986. The middle of the night. In the city of Pripyat, everything is still. The apartment blocks are dark. Children are asleep. Somewhere, a parent set an alarm for 6. On the third floor of one building, a coffee maker sits ready for the morning, and a coat hangs by the front door. At the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, 3 kilometers away, the night shift technicians are working as usual. Cold coffee on the desks, half-filled forms. A few meters away, Reactor Number 4 is running at low power. Nobody knows they have minutes left, know what they're doing. What nobody at the plant understood yet that night was that they were running a poorly planned safety test. With an unstable reactor and a protocol nobody had fully reviewed, that every decision made in the last few hours had brought them, without realizing it, to the edge of something they couldn't take back. Without knowing it, they were about to become the central figures in the worst nuclear accident in history. We call it Chernobyl. But to understand why it happened, watching the explosion isn't enough. You have to understand what that plant was, how the Soviet system worked, what pressures led people to make dangerous decisions, and why one April night in Ukraine changed the world's relationship with nuclear energy forever. Today, we walk through all of it. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant was located in the northern part of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, about 80 miles north of Kyiv. Construction began in 1970, and it became one of the largest and most modern plants in the Soviet Union. 4 reactors in operation, 2 more under construction. Next to it, almost attached, sat the city of Pripyat, founded in 1970 specifically to house the plant's workers and their families. A model Soviet city, modern, orderly, with grocery stores, schools, a brand new amusement park, and nearly 50,000 residents. The Soviet Union of the mid-1980s was operating under the pressure of the Cold War and an economy that was starting to show cracks. Nuclear energy was a symbol of technological pride and state power. The RBMK reactors, like those at Chernobyl, were considered safe and efficient, and that narrative over time became dangerous. Life in Pripyat was quiet and relatively comfortable by Soviet standards of the time. Plant workers had good salaries, access to goods that were scarce in other cities, and a sense of belonging to something important. Their kids walked to school a few minutes away. On weekends, there were movies, sports, walks along the Pripyat River. The plant was the economic heart of the area, and nobody saw it as a threat. On April 25, 1986, the night shift was preparing to run a technical test that had been postponed several times. The goal was to check whether the reactor's turbines could generate enough electricity during an emergency shutdown to keep the cooling systems running until the diesel generators kicked in. A safety test in theory. The technicians had been working for hours. Some were already pulling extra shifts. The shift supervisor had been told to carry out the test that night. No matter what, everything seemed routine. But underneath that routine, problems had been ignored, one after another. The RBMK reactor had a design flaw known to some Soviet engineers, but classified as a state secret. Under certain low power conditions, the reactor could become unstable and difficult to control. That flaw was never openly communicated to plant operators. During the afternoon of April 25th, the test was delayed for hours due to demands from the power grid. By the time they were cleared to proceed, in the middle of the night, the reactor had dropped to dangerously low power, nearly shutting itself down. To recover power, the operators withdrew too many control rods, leaving the reactor in an extremely unstable state. The instruments were showing readings that, for anyone trained to read them, signaled danger. But the Soviet system didn't reward the person who stopped a test. It rewarded the person who finished one. The test continued. On April 26, 1986, at 1:23 in the morning, The shift foreman ordered the operator to press the AD5 emergency button to insert all control rods and shut down the reaction. It did the opposite of what they expected. Because of the design flaw, inserting the rods triggered a sudden power surge at the bottom of the reactor. In less than 3 seconds, power spiked to catastrophic levels. The reactor exploded twice. The first steam explosion destroyed the reactor's 1,000-ton cover. The second scattered radioactive material into the open air. The roof of reactor number 4 was gone. It was 1:24 in the morning. In Pripyat, some residents woke up to the sound. They looked out their windows and saw a reddish glow on the horizon. Most assumed it was an ordinary fire and went back to bed. The first firefighters arrived within minutes, with no idea what they were walking into. They weren't told about the radiation. They worked for hours on the rubble of the open reactor, picking up graphite with their bare hands, stepping on highly radioactive material. Several began feeling nausea and skin burns that same night. 29 of them died in the weeks that followed from acute radiation syndrome. They were the first names on a list that never stopped growing. Soviet authorities took hours to acknowledge the real severity of the accident. The initial response was to manage it internally and avoid alarming the public. Pripyat wasn't evacuated until 36 hours after the explosion. During that time, children went to school. People went about their day. Some fished in the river. When the evacuation order finally came, residents were told it would be temporary, that they'd be back in 3 days. Most left their things at home. Some left their pets. The liquidators, more than 600,000 people mobilized to contain the disaster in the months that followed, worked under extreme radiation exposure. Many didn't know exactly what dose they were absorbing. Some received lethal amounts within days. Others developed illnesses years later. The WHO estimates that several thousand developed thyroid cancer and other radiation-related diseases in the decades that followed. The 30-kilometer exclusion zone around the plant was permanently evacuated. More than 350,000 people were resettled. Entire towns went silent overnight. Laundry still hanging, toys left on the floor. Calendars stopped at April 1986. Pripyat is still empty today. The amusement park that never officially opened is still there, rusting between the trees that have slowly been reclaiming the city. Chernobyl accelerated the fall of the Soviet Union. Mikhail Gorbachev acknowledged years later that the accident was one of the turning points that convinced him the system needed fundamental change. Glasnost, the policy of openness he pushed through, was in part a direct response to the culture of secrecy that made Chernobyl possible. Around the world, the accident reshaped the debate around nuclear energy for decades. It changed protocols, reactor designs, and international legal frameworks. Reactor number 4 is now encased in a steel and concrete sarcophagus completed in 2016, designed to contain the radiation for at least 100 years. The melted core is still underneath, still warm, still there. Thanks for watching. Chernobyl isn't just the story of a nuclear explosion. It's the story of what happens when a system rewards silence over truth, and when failures are allowed to stack up because nobody dares to stop them in time. Now tell me in the comments, which accident, disaster, or historical moment would you like to see reconstructed with artificial intelligence? See you in the next one.